All right, good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're joining us from, to this week's Tech Insights series. This is a very special episode of our series. We are going to be talking about 2021 North Stars. We're going to be talking about what your organization should be thinking about as you plan for what should be important in 2021. And we have a fantastic guest this week. We have Brian Willson. Brian Willson is the Vice President of the Midwest region at Microsoft. He's going to be a great guest to help us understand what Microsoft is seeing from the market in terms of how customers should be looking at their 2021 goals. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, thanks, Nate, and just happy to be here and can't wait to get started. It's going to be a fun 30 minutes.
Awesome. Let's get started. And again, my name is Nathan Lesnowski. I'm Concurrency's Chief Technology Officer. I'll be your host today, and let's get going. So today we're going to be talking about 2021 transformation. And what we'll cover is the 5 North Stars that your organization should be thinking about as you do your planning for 2021. We'll talk about the value for each. We'll talk about the positive gains and the next steps that are associated with each of those potential goals. Also, we want to invite you to next week's webinar, or 2 weeks out's webinar, on Thursday, December 3rd. We'll be talking about building a manageable AI framework on Azure. This is about thinking about AI not as just a point project, but as an overall approach, operationalizing AI within your enterprise organization, building an AI center for excellence and accelerating AI at your organization. If we consider that AI is the most transformational technology of our generation, this is a non-miss webinar. So definitely make that one in 2 weeks on December 3rd. Next week, please be enjoying your Thanksgiving. All right, so let's get into it. One of the ways we think about transformation from a concurrency perspective and also from a market perspective is that transformation is happening both in the IT operations of a business and in the way that the business engages within the market. We think about it in terms of marketplace disruption and IT operations transformation. When we think about the IT operations side, we're thinking about driving efficiency and enablement for the business to have a commoditized, secure workplace that lets the business do what it does best. When we think about marketplace disruption, we're thinking about bringing either new revenue or operational savings into a business. So when the business is looking to transform itself, it's looking to transform itself surrounding its customers by bringing in that new revenue source or by changing the way it delivers for those customers with operational savings. So today we're going to cover these 5 transformational North Stars. And these are very important areas within either the market disruption or IT operations transformation. Each of these are opportunities for a business to think about themselves differently, to set a clear goal, and to orient your team and external parties to help achieve that goal so you can be in a position where your business is achieving more. As we think about these, think about them in the context of not necessarily just where you are today, but also beginning with the end in mind. Thinking about these as ends that your team is oriented around to try to achieve. So let's hit them one by one, and Brian's going to give us an initial point on each of these as we start to talk about them from his perspective, looking at the market. So the first North Star that we're going to cover today is about the idea of creating digital lines of business. So Brian, I'd love to hear what you're seeing from your customers when they think about the idea of creating a digital line of business. To that might even be a legacy line of business now or a new line of business that they hadn't brought to market yet.
Nate, thanks. Yeah, when I think about this topic, this has been in many ways the core of the digital transformation promise, and the evolution of the thought has happened over several years. And so, we have companies we work with ranging from true business model innovation, and you think of the common cliches, the product as a service model could be water as a service, aircraft engines as a service, whatever line of business you're in, and how you transform a traditional business model into a service-based model. And so companies are getting a lot smarter about how they can make that transformation, do it in an elegant way that extends and grows the top line of the business. And it's inspiring to see the creativity. But that's not the only way people are introducing these digital lines of business. In other ways, it's extending the current product experience with digital capabilities. And there's so much excitement going on that now, and would love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, we have one of our customers that is a good example of this because they've traditionally sold through a distributor model, and this is Brunswick. So what Brunswick has been doing is they're thinking about the ideas of creating a smart boating platform, and they're extending their existing boat sales into that smart boating platform. So when you buy a boat, there's all these things you got to think about. You got to think about the ideas of whether or not the battery's charged and you're backing the boat into the water and your kids have got their life preservers on and all of a sudden the boat doesn't start, right? So they're thinking about these ideas of how we can make that boating experience better by enabling that traditional product, which is not a smart product, into a smart product that starts to mitigate some of those problems that you have when you start to use the product, but then also starts to drive new opportunities to deliver new services. Maybe it's, this is a great day to go boating, or it might be, this is a great opportunity surrounding the weather or a location you should go, or the ideas about new products you might want for your boat. So it starts to create that continuous experience surrounding the product that they've delivered, but then also add-on experiences that complement the distributor model and complement the way they serve their customers. I know you've had a lot of experience in the automotive industry as well. Is that something that's sort of contiguous there as well, Brian?
Yeah, it absolutely extends, and I think it's a key area that automotive companies and related industries are honing in on, because that experience extends far beyond the product value in how they integrate and operate with that. That product has changed. Part of it is the evolving consumer mindset, and part of it is the convenience factor and the operational aspects of it that make it so compelling to put solutions like these in the market.
Awesome. Now, one of the things that we've seen some of our customers go through is rationalization of those smart platforms, whether it's a beer distributor or it's a automotive organization or someone making boats. There's always a starting point, which is, what is our market opportunity? And what we've seen is that when we turn in these smart platforms, we start to enable smart platforms, it's either about competitiveness in the existing market with other companies that are making smart platforms where this is just table stakes, or it's an opportunity to add new sales, or both. So an example customer that turned to a B2B scenario in smart platform engineering is a customer of ours that drove additional $340 million of revenue just by driving the smart platform on their quoting approach to their B2B customers. So a lot of times it's not just about smart platform in terms of something I've sold. It might be, as a consumer good, it might be something even that is going through the B2B channel enabling smart product revenue, which is an opportunity to be able to really build my strategy surrounding the revenue lift that's tied to an opportunity like this.
So insightful. I think so many people think of it as a consumer-oriented experience, but the power of B2B and the opportunity of B2B is tremendous. So love that.
Awesome. Let's get our next topic. So our next North Star is around delivering a new revenue or operational savings through AI. And we know AI has been something that's been in various stages of the hype cycle, and certain people will think of it as aspirational in terms of trying to attach value to where AI is going. I'd love to hear from you, Brian, a little bit about your experiences with your customers pursuing AI opportunities and what it's done for their business.
Yeah, I think you set up the conversation perfectly at the beginning, even with the upcoming webinars that you're offering, which I'm going to sign up for those because they look amazing. Customers are focused so much more on business outcomes these days, and certainly it's the environment we live in with the global pandemic and the resulting impact on the economy. Really focused on driving business outcomes, and so how you set it up with delivering on new revenue or operational savings is exactly what we're seeing, with companies, across the Midwest. They're focused on where they can use AI and use technology to drive outcomes. That could be as simple as operational efficiency type of projects where they're trying to lower maintenance costs, reduce inventory, or other aspects operationally within their business, or it could be things like finding new revenue opportunities, ways to sort of track potential customers in the pipeline to accelerate sales, or something as seemingly maybe not as common, but not as commonplace for AI, but certainly impactful is being able to use AI to predict of which of their customers could pay late. right? And that could be a surprising use to AI for some. But if you look at the anybody's accounts payable or other types of processes or financial systems in place, there's an ability to drive high efficiency and better clarity and better predictability in those spaces. So it is about business outcomes, and it is about getting yourself set up to be successful in an AI project. And granted, I know I talked to some companies, and they say, we feel like we have to get our data estate in order before we can truly unlock the value of AI. And I think what they're finding is they still need that North Star to be able to prove within their organization the power of AI. So they take on these experiments as they're modernizing their data estate, and it's a pretty powerful sort of combination and approach to the strategy. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up the ideas around data estate. One of the things that we've been seeing in the organizations, and you nailed it right there, is that they're oftentimes sitting back down here on the maturity curve. They've got very distributed data platforms, or they've got a very legacy on-premise data warehousing approach to how they think about data. So it's difficult for they sort of a blocker between where they are now and looking to leverage AI. But one of the things we've also found is that sometimes it's the pull to hit the machine learning goal that basically brings the data estate along. It doesn't necessarily mean I have to lift the entire data estate to be able to get to delivering value with AI. Oftentimes, that first AI project is the one that pulls the data estate up as a rationale to modernize the data estate in certain slivers of the data that you're bringing into the cloud, and then brings forward all those capabilities around optimization and scenario modeling that AI is used to be able to deliver true value for the business. Is that consistent with what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better than myself. Yeah, it's so true.
Awesome. And similarly to the previous example, this is where real ROI optimization is very possible. This is something, again, that people think of so aspirationally. I think they think, oh, wow, everybody's saying there's so much value in AI, but am I really going to get something from it? And the answer is absolutely. This is where you're taking many human processes that are dependent on intuition and Excel and SAP and things that haven't had AI levels built into them yet, and you're augmenting it with AI. One of our customers, Clover, saw $50 to $80 million of capital freed up when they did an AI demand forecasting project within their ecosystem. That's not something that says that just Clover was bad at doing it. It means they're an example of where AI builds on other capabilities to be able to optimize their inventory improvement and drive freed up capital within the most important time to be doing that. All right, so let's hit the third conversation, third North Star, which is about getting out of the data center business. And there's a couple different angles on this, right? It's about the legacy data center. It's about modernizing the way you approach the data center. It's about enabling new workloads in the way you build platforms and understanding it from that perspective. Kind of what have you been seeing as organizations are really looking hard at this question, Brian?
Yeah, it's another great question. This is probably one that could take an entire 30-minute discussion on. But there's a lot of energy and activity in this area for all the reasons a lot of us on this webinar know and would expect. It's the capabilities of the cloud-based capabilities are getting so much stronger, and the economics continue to get better and better. And so, and I'd combine that and say, fewer and fewer companies see their data center as a strategic asset, right? And so now it's about, how can you get clear on the economic benefits that you're looking for as a company, and what those mean to you, and then translating that into a financial plan that's going to help you transform the way you're operating now, which could be, as Nate, you discussed, a complete legacy data center environment. You could have a hybrid environment along your journey, and it gives you that financial model to make sure that not only is the beginning state and the end state clear, but the transition state along the way makes financial sense for what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. And then the third piece is the actual, IT and business strategy of how you get there. So a tremendous amount of work, I'd say, across all industries, across all segments, there is a big focus here, and I see that continuing in 2021. Would love to hear, how Concurrency thinks about it with your clients.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is that organizations at this point understand the cloud is going to be a component of what they deliver to the business. But I think now's the time to set a North Star, which is a little bit more bold. And by being bold, meaning that now's the time for me to position my organization to be able to leverage the cloud as a competitive differentiator. In a sense that what enables these activities up here, product differentiation, innovation differentiation, the fusion of technology across the business, that technology isn't something the IT organization does, it's something the business does. It's a verb rather than a noun. And what this is about is getting from a position where IT thinks about the data center as a delivery model to a enablement model. And that's where we're seeing organizations that are down in this, or they either don't have the cloud, or the business is engaged in scattered cloud activities, but the IT hasn't really caught up to enabling an operationalized cloud environment that then positions the business to be able to be an innovation differentiator. Because we're building new applications, they're not being built on legacy Windows domain joined virtual machines. They're being built on containers and serverless and data lakes, AI platforms, things that are enabling us to harness the innovation and drive it faster. And preventing the existing data center from sort of being the boat anchor that prevents us from driving innovation, I think, is important. What's your thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I love the way you have the visual around it. You're clear on the future, benefits that the business can get by making a cloud transformation. I love the squiggly lines around operationalizing cloud. I feel in many ways that's the enabler or accelerator to the transformation, because we do see customers in that sort of how you call it legacy plus, and they see the vision, they know the benefits it's going to bring them, but they're stuck on the operational aspects of it, and so there's a real opportunity to break through there. And the good news is that the cloud business has such a strong base of business at this point. The best practices around operations, the learnings that companies like you have had taking customers through this journey are sound, and they're really good. And so it's an opportunity to take from what some of the early folks did over the years as it's matured, and now use that to accelerate your own success. So, I sort of double stamp where you kind of wrote 2 lines on the operational side of it. But I think it's such an important aspect now in this sort of general range of maturity we're in here in the industry.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, I feel like when we first, maybe it was 6-7 years ago, when we first started in this Azure cloud stuff, nobody had really written the book on what an operationalized cloud looks like. And now we're in a position where those best practices really exist, and it shouldn't be a blocker anymore.
Not at all. Not at all.
One thing that's been coming up with us is companies wanting to understand the financial relationship between their on-premise environment and the cloud, because they're looking to take their on-premise environment, get out of the data center business, move the legacy workloads, either to a hybrid scenario where they have sort of 2 pizza boxes in a cloud sort of situation, or to exit their data centers. But they're also looking at they're looking at that financially, but they're also looking at it from the aspect that it prepares them to run these more modern workloads. But from the financial perspective, there's a lot of questions. Like, that's a complex conversation. So that's one where, what we've found is like, this really needs to be a serious, open-minded exercise to look objectively at what are the options, how do I get the best value in the cloud for my money? Because unlike a lot of the on-premise environment, there's a lot of sort of adjustments with Azure hybrid use benefits to reserves to optimization that makes a big difference in your spend. Is that kind of what you're seeing as you're starting to plan financially with customers on this?
Yeah, I mean, you said it really well. I mean, you are shifting from a more CapEx centric environment into an OpEx centric environment, and that does have impact in the way you look at the financials. And so that's diligence that is put in. You're flashing up a view of it here, and I know the work that you all do to help here is tremendous, because you have to be super diligent about taking the existing workloads. If we're talking just about, say, the current footprint of the data center, and talk about migrating not just pure value to value, but the time it costs to migrate, when it gets there, how you optimize once you're there, kind of that ongoing rhythm and operations that helps companies continue to sort of decrease that investment and take full advantage of it. And then that sets up for the more strategic conversations, which you hit a little bit above, which is, okay, now we're taking advantage of the cloud platform and all that it gives us, and how do we write modern applications and do so in a way that takes full advantage of the elasticity of the cloud, of the scale up, scale down, everything it affords you. So I'm spot on in the diligence. I have yet to see a company, when they truly get into this, not take a similar, very diligent financial approach to how they're moving to the cloud.
Awesome. All right, this is just a very relevant topic, and it's a shift to mitigating a major concern that we have in our businesses. And sometimes it doesn't become a concern until it happens, unfortunately. But let's talk a little bit about security, and especially on the concept of zero trust. What we're seeing, is the idea around that being a really important North Star for an organization this year. Brian, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing from a zero trust standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe a rough definition of zero trust. Probably most people know this on this call, maybe perhaps better than I do. But just in case you've heard of it, but you don't really know, right? It's really an access model that assumes that everything is on the open internet. Whether or not it's protected behind your corporate firewalls or not. So even the resources that sit behind the corporate firewalls are assumed to be on the open internet. And it's just an approach and a philosophy that's really necessary in today's world, where we have more and more people working from a variety of devices. And now we have most of the people working from home, or at least in some hybrid manner. You're no longer really in the safety of your four walls. You add to that the number of cloud applications that are being used daily by your workforce. And the approach needs to modernize and change along with the cloud transformation, and the impacts can be real. I think it's about $1 trillion every year that's lost to cyber attacks, and so it's an impact that can be crippling to an enterprise. And it's no longer just a security issue. I think we all know these are company level issues, sometimes board level issues that are on the table, and so. Zero trust is a great pillar to think about how you modernize your approach to security. Nate, would love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, right in line with that. For me, it's about mitigating what the most likely bad things are. And we know that those most likely bad things are ransomware and targeted attacks. And both of those approaches to taking advantage of an organization are really impactful. We've seen organizations that have had very substantial business impact from that. Ones that have security departments, they have CISOs, they have people thinking about and caring about security and antivirus and IDS and all the things that you'd think about in that range. And the main vehicle that zero trust is trying to mitigate is lateral movement. It's trying to prevent something that was taken advantage of from being able to be used to take advantage of something else within the environment, because this is how most organizations are compromised. Is one thing moves to another thing, moves to another thing, moves to another thing. And our goal is to take a different look at how we secure an environment than we have been running our ecosystems for the last 20 years, because they're substantially changing with the cloud. And that's where zero trust, being really the combination of three main practical concepts: implementing conditional access across the identity plane, which is the main vehicle to determine what accesses what in the modern environment, the movement of the modern desktop away from a highly connected, contiguous element of the environment to a device that's operating no differently than your cell phone would, where your cell phone is living off network. It's managed, it's controlled, it's applied policies, but it's not living on a contiguous network where things can move around. And then the application of cloud data center micro network segmentation, which is the idea of like every workload in the data center, especially the cloud data center, is isolated from each other workload. That mitigates movement. And these ideas are all very achievable ideas. They take time, they take energy, they take focus. But then wrapped up with them is the tremendous productivity improvement that comes along with them. Any other thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, you set it up well. I mean, the way I think of it is the platform approach, and it's the one that Microsoft as a company we've been investing billions of dollars in, is really necessary because it helps address the seams that you described. And in some folks believe in the best of breed approach, but that approach has shown to create seams, unfortunately, or you have to spend a lot of resources kind of stitching together the seams to protect the organization. So we believe in the platform approach. With the investments we continue to make, we also do quite well in best of breed for individual product evaluations. But I think what you're laying out here is the more strategic intent, which is, how do you take a look at the new threat landscape? How do you protect against it? We of course advocate on this platform approach to doing so to minimize the seams, address the lateral movement as you described. So it's all good stuff.
Awesome. All right, I know we've only got about 3 minutes here, but let's hit this last very important topic, and it's so relevant right now because of the way that productivity has changes. And this is the idea of measuring and increasing digital productivity. I think about the idea that we are all trying to be productive in a different way right now. And it's not just about enabling productivity, it's about enabling productivity that's done well. And I guess I'd love to hear, Brian, what are you seeing from your tremendous customer shift in this space?
Yeah, two things, and heck, I really want to hear from you. So I'll just say a couple of things. I'd tell folks to take a look at the productivity score that was just introduced inside of your Microsoft 365 tenant. It's a way to measure both the people and the technology perspective and of how your organization is working. Super important now. Workplace analytics is also another area I draw your attention to. Been so valuable just me as a business leader who has access to it, just watching the way the patterns of behavior have shifted through the pandemic as people have begun working remotely and at home has allowed us to sort of step in and help support the health and thriving of the organization as we've seen these patterns emerge. So understanding how your org is working through different scenarios also has tremendous benefit. Then the second, those are sort of like the insights, but the processes I think are also tremendously important, which is, in this new world of work, which is going to be with us for some time, it's how are your processes changing and evolving to support this new digital environment. And Nate, again, would love to hear your take on this.
Yeah, right in line with what you're saying there. I feel like it's about taking the 3 different domains of productivity and ensuring that we haven't just connected them digitally, we've made them productive digitally. We've thought about it as an outcome that we want this to be not just sort of a staging ground, but also an opportunity for it to be done really well. So that's, for me, it's about individual productivity, it's about team productivity, enterprise productivity. Individual meaning, as a person doing my own individual work, am I better? Am I faster? Am I happier? Am I more content with what I'm doing? And then as I relate that into the way the team works, is that team collaborating better? Is that team enabling automation capabilities across the processes that it does? And then as an enterprise, can we look at the way those teams work together to be able to understand how we're doing as an organization and take leadership action? And that's where I think things like workplace insights come into play, where we're thinking about the metrics of the overall organization and understanding, is it healthy? Is it happy? Is it doing the kinds of things that it needs to do to be successful? And is it getting better every day? So we think about that in terms of leveraging the Power Platform as a vehicle to be able to help with those automation layers, but then also thinking about it in what you mentioned, which is so interesting and is so valuable, is the idea of looking at our productivity score and saying, what are we doing that other organizations are doing well? And what aren't we doing that other organizations are doing well? And how does that objectively compare how we're doing versus them? What is the impact of enabling this capability or enabling this practice on our organization? And then being able to measure that over time and seeing that our organization's better for it objectively versus just the feeling about how it's better, which is important too. But kind of combining these 2 things together, I think this is a fantastic asset. So I'm glad you brought this up, Brian. Okay, we're getting right at the end of our time here. Brian, any closing thoughts for us?
No, just trying to keep up with you in this conversation, Nate. You and the concurrency team just do a great job partnering with us, and we appreciate the partnership, and yeah, would love to continue to grow that to help our customers succeed. So thanks for the opportunity to join you, and I look forward to learning from you in the future.
Awesome. So we would love for everyone on the call today to take a next step. We'd love for you to engage in executive ideation sessions surrounding at least one of these 5 concepts. This is an opportunity where we can explore it together. We can understand what the practice and productivity of this in your organization can be. We can help set the North Star, define the pilot project, define the project implementation approach, and ultimately get to an ROI, because that's really the end game of any one of these. Is this needs to provide value above the line or below the line in the business, and it needs to help our businesses to be a better, more effective, more person-centric place to work. So you will get, at the end of this, you'll get a follow-up on signing up to do one of these kinds of follow-up ideation sessions. Definitely take advantage of that. There is no cost. We want to provide education at this point around helping people to understand what their North Stars can be, and now is the time for us to be able to help provide that education to you. So definitely do that. We'd love to meet virtually one-on-one. Also join our webinar next 2 Thursdays from now on December 3rd, Building a Manageable AI Framework on Azure. Definitely also check out our blogs and videos on concurrency.com, and have a wonderful, wonderful end of the day. And great Thanksgiving for everyone who's enjoying that. And thank you, Brian, for your help today.